Entitled mother steals my blind cane. So here's the backstory. I'm a 28-year-old woman who just recently went fully blind. When I was a teenager, I volunteered with my local youth group to rebuild Mississippi after Hurricane Katrina. While down there, I picked up a fungal parasite called Histoplasmosis that over a decade migrated to my eyes and slowly caused my blindness. I've been totally blind for about a year now, so I'm pretty new to it, but I digress. When I first went blind, I barely left the house and I was afraid to go in public. I felt like everyone was staring at me, and in all honesty, I barely knew what I was doing. The transition had been difficult and I didn't have any support group to teach me. One day, my husband asked if we can take an Uber to the bank and deposit a rent check, and I reluctantly agree. While out, he messages again and reminds me that we're out of a few crucial groceries. There was a Walmart grocery literally across the street from the bank, so I figured everything in life is an experience and I'll have to learn how to shop alone eventually, so why not? Everything was fine at first, and I was only grabbing a few things, so I didn't need a cart. I was using my cane and what little echolocation skills I had at the time to get around, but was still bumping into things as we blind tend to do sometimes. My cane suddenly hit something a bit softer, and I figured maybe I had whacked someone's leg and apologized. Cue the entitled kid and the entitled mother. Me. Shoot, I'm sorry. Entitled mother. Hey, you just hit my son! Me. I am so sorry, ma'am. I didn't see him there. Entitled mother begins yelling. How could you not see him? He's clearly right there! Now, I'm fully blind, but I don't wear sunglasses, mostly because I can't afford a good UV blocking pair, but I'm also not ever looking for pity or to play the part of a generic blind person. I just want to be treated like a normal person, but I do understand her confusion as blindness is a spectrum, so I try to calmly explain, ma'am, I am blind. I can't see anything, let alone your son. That's why I have to use the cane so I can get around without. She cuts me off. If you're blind, why aren't you wearing big sunglasses? Now, as a blind person, I get a lot of stupid questions, but I understand a lot of them are just people who don't know better. So I try to happily answer as many as I can. Me. Those sunglasses are really expensive, around $200 for a good pair, and I really don't need any inside. Entitled mother. You're not blind, you're faking it. Here is where my blood starts to boil. I can't think of any reason someone would want to pretend to be blind. It's an actual hell. And nothing pisses me off more than when someone calls me a liar when I'm not. Just as I'm about to respond, I feel a tug, and before I blink, this little demon spawn has snatched my $100 cane from my hands. For those of you who don't understand, that's like if you're shopping and then suddenly the power goes out and you can't see a single light. Without my cane, I can barely move at all without crashing into anything. My voice gets shaky as I begin to panic. Please give it back. I really do need the cane. Entitled mother. No, you don't. You're a liar. My son deserves to play with this more than you. I hear her shuffle away and my expensive cane cracking into metal displays and such as they leave. I start crying and waving my arms in front of me to grab onto something, anything, and end up crashing and falling into a center aisle display, making a loud scene. Without fail, I somewhat curl into a ball and cry. I'm alone in public in the dark, and I had no idea what to do. Suddenly, I feel a hand on my shoulder, and it's a man's voice. He asks if I'm okay and to stay right there. I do stay there, but I begin to sit up and listen. This man must have been tall and built like a tank because his footsteps sounded like a giant, and I felt a suction of wind when he took off. Maybe about 30 or 40 feet away, I hear this loud bellowing like an angry lion and a loud crash. Then, before I know it, the man is back and helping me to my feet. He takes my hand and puts my cane into my palm and helps me pick up the items I dropped when I fell into the display. Me wiping tears from my cheeks. Thank you so much. I didn't know how to handle that. The awesome guy says, don't worry about it. Some people are just monsters. This guy restored my faith in humanity and even helped me finish shopping and help me out of the store. As we're leaving, I can hear the familiar screeching of entitled mother, something about awesome guy grabbing the cane and pulling hard, flinging her little devil child into a shopping cart. I don't know if she was exaggerating or not, but it would explain the crash that I heard. It's easy to feel alone in the world without sight, but even through the sheer terror of being stripped stripped of my cane. At least I know there are people willing to stand up for me when I need it. This was really sad. I was hoping that when she went into the grocery store, it was going to be a positive first experience, especially since she's so new to being blind. But what a horrible first experience to have to associate with the first time that you went out on your own into a grocery store, into a market like this. And thankfully that guy was there to help her. I mean, just like the OP said, I can't imagine that anyone would pretend to be blind and then stick with this whole character, and that you would take the chance to assume that they are pretending to be blind and then take something that only a blind person would have, a blind person's cane, and then just leave. If that guy didn't run off and stop her, then they would have left with her cane and she would have been there alone, and the husband would have had to search the entire store to eventually find her whenever he was done dropping off the rent. I know it's not directly related to the entire story, but one thing that was pretty shocking to me was the fact that it was a fungal parasite that over the course of a decade that caused her to become blind. I'm not really familiar with how common something like this could be, but that's a pretty horrible outcome for what it sounds like trying to help people after Hurricane Katrina happened, and then this ends up being the result of it. Surprisingly, a lot of people were questioning whether or not the OP was actually blind because she typed all of this out, but she even explains, because of the sheer overwhelming volume of people asking me, if you're blind, how are you typing? I'll answer first with my fingers, and secondly, I'm using a screen reader called Narrator that reads the screen. Wherever my cursor or finger is over the screen, it reads, and when I type a letter, it reads. Guys, just like Google it or something. So even in text form, people are still questioning whether or not she is actually blind, which has got to be incredibly frustrating. But if you guys have ever seen a situation like this, let me know what happened, or if not, what would you do if you're in a situation like this? Entitled Mother wants me to stop treating my young adult children as adults. So a little backstory. I have two young adult children living at home, ages 18 and 19. They both go to work and go to college. I trust my kid. I trust her decisions by making skills. When they graduated high school and turned 18, new rules went into place. No curfew. Just call me and let me know if you're going to be out all night so I don't worry. You can call me at any time for a pickup, no questions asked. Just don't be stupid and drink and drive. Yes, your significant other can sleep over or come over for the weekend. Just let me know what's going on. Pay a small amount of rent during the summer when you are working full time, and pay your part of the car insurance. You have your chores, I have mine, we all work together. I tell them if they're being jerks and they listen. In turn, I listen to them. There is very little fighting or arguing in my house. This is their time to spread their wings and learn how to be responsible adults and have me as a safety net. Lately, one of my kids' significant others has been spending a lot of time over at my house. He is here pretty much all the time. 2 days ago, I got a call from a phone number I didn't recognize, and I answered it, and it was my daughter's boyfriend's mother, who is the entitled mother. I answer and say, hello? Entitled mother says, you need to tell my kid he isn't allowed over at your house anymore. Me, who's this? This is Tommy's mother. I already know where this is going. Oh, Tommy's mother. I have to say, you raised a great kid. He is always polite and respectful. In fact, look, I don't care what you think about my kid. He is never home. He isn't spending any time with me. Me, okay, there's not much I can do about that. Entitled mother, yes there is. Tell him he can't come over to your house anymore. I want him home. And you set a bad example for my son. Your daughter has no curfew, and I'm sick and tired of hearing how nice it is at your house. I miss my son and I want him home. Me, speaking very lowly and basically growling into the phone, are you done yelling at me? I will take that as a yes. Do you trust the way that you raised your son? Entitled mother, what? It's a simple question. Do you trust the way that you raised your son? Of course I do. What does that have to do with anything? Do you trust him to make good decisions? Yes, of course. She is starting to calm down now. Me, mother to mother, I know things are not okay at your house right now. Her husband drinks a lot. I am trying to give your child a safe space for when things are not okay at your house. She starts to cut me off at this point, but I won't let her. It's not your fault. Entitled mother is silent. Me, he throws your son out for days at a time sometimes, doesn't he? Entitled mother, yes. I can hear her choking back the tears. Me, do you need someone to talk to? Would you like to go out to lunch? That way you can feel safer knowing whose house your son is at and that he is safe. Entitled mother, that would be okay. We were on the phone for about an hour after that. What started off as an entitled mother was just a scared woman feeling very, very alone. Sorry there wasn't any righteous retribution, but I think it turned out okay. I'm going to try and get 19-year-old Tommy's curfew changed from 10 p.m. to midnight, and maybe he can stay over for a weekend. What do you think? This was way more wholesome than I thought it was going to be based on the way this was titled and the way that this whole thing started off. I mean, basically, it sounds like the entitled mother here is dealing with a severe lack of control, but luckily, the OP, the mother here, has a very, very high degree of empathy to not only get yelled at and not yell back at her, but also to kind of see through the veil of what's really going on and try to cut through to find some sort of solution, as close to a solution as you can. Obviously, it sounds in this situation that the true core of the issue is the father, but it doesn't seem like that's even a realistic thing to deal with without knowing the rest of the situation. So what she does instead is offer an alternative to get to know her so she can feel more comfortable about where her son is spending all of this time. It seems pretty rare to see a situation turn out like this, so much so that the OP actually apologizes for not having any retribution to end this whole story. But if you guys have ever been in a situation like this, let me know what happened. And if you haven't, what would you do if you were in this situation? Don't forget to drop a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and if you want to submit your own story to be shared here on the channel, check out the link down below in the description.